shadows of Seaside Cove. Jake Harmon's weathered hands gripped the steering wheel as he guided his battered pickup down the winding coastal road. Beside him, Max, his loyal German shepherd, sat with ears perked, nose twitching at the salty air streaming through the cracked window. "Almost there, boy," Jake murmured, more to himself than the dog. After 20 years on Chicago's police force, the last 5 as a homicide detective, he was ready for a change, ready for peace, ready to forget. Seaside Cove materialized through the morning mist like a postcard come to life. Quaint storefronts lined the main street, their pastel awnings fluttering in the breeze. Tourists ambled along the sidewalks, ice cream cones in hand. It was a far cry from the grimy alleyways and crime scenes that had dominated Jake's life for so long. As Jake pulled up to his new rental cottage, a sense of unease prickled at the back of his neck. He shook it off, chalking it up to nerves. This was a fresh start, a chance to leave the nightmares behind. The first few weeks passed in a blur of unpacking and settling in. Jake found himself falling into an easy routine. Morning walks with Max along the beach, afternoons fixing up the cottage, evenings nursing a beer on the porch as the sun dipped below the horizon. It was during one of those morning walks that things began to change. Max, normally the picture of a well-behaved dog, suddenly tensed. A low growl rumbled in his chest as a jogger approached. "Max, heel!" Jake commanded sharply. But the dog's hackles remained raised as the man passed. Jake frowned, perplexed by the uncharacteristic behavior. Over the next few days, similar incidents occurred. Max would grow agitated around certain townspeople, pulling at his leash or positioning himself protectively in front of Jake. It was as if the dog sensed something Jake couldn't see. Jake's detective instincts, dulled by retirement but never fully extinguished, began to stir. He started paying closer attention to the people and places that triggered Max's reactions. A pattern emerged. The sleek sports cars that sometimes roared through town in the dead of night, the hushed conversations that abruptly ceased when he entered the local diner, the nervous glances from the harbor master whenever Jake inquired about the comings and goings of certain boats. One evening, as Jake and Max strolled past the abandoned cannery at the edge of town, the dog suddenly veered off the path. He bounded towards the dilapidated building, barking insistently. "Max, come!" Jake called, but the dog ignored him. With a sigh, Jake followed, ducking under a rusted chain that blocked the entrance. The interior was dark and musty. Jake pulled out his phone, using its flashlight to navigate around fallen beams and scattered debris. Max led him deeper into the building, to a heavy metal door that looked oddly new compared to its surroundings. Jake's pulse quickened. He pressed his ear against the cold steel, straining to hear. Muffled voices drifted through, too faint to make out words but unmistakably tense. Suddenly, footsteps approached from the other side. Jake and Max scrambled for cover, concealing themselves behind a stack of rotting crates. The door creaked open, spilling light into the warehouse. 2 men emerged, their faces obscured by the harsh contrast. "The shipment's late," one growled. "The boss ain't gonna be happy." "Relax," the other replied. "It'll be here tomorrow night. Same routine as always." As their voices faded, Jake's mind raced. Shipments? A boss? It reeked of organized crime right here in this sleepy little town. Over the next few days, Jake discreetly began to investigate. He called in favors from old contacts, piecing together a disturbing picture. Seaside Cove, it seemed, was a key hub in a sophisticated drug trafficking operation. The quaint town facade masked a sinister underbelly. Jake knew he should alert the authorities, but something held him back. "Trust no one," his instincts whispered. The corruption likely ran deep. As he dug deeper, Jake noticed he was being watched. A black SUV with tinted windows began appearing wherever he went. Unknown numbers called his phone, hanging up as soon as he answered. One night, Jake woke to Max's frantic barking. The acrid smell of smoke filled the air. Flames licked at the cottage walls, blocking the exits. It was only through Max's quick thinking, the dog somehow managed to knock over a weakened section of wall, that they escaped. Standing in the street, watching his new home burn, Jake knew there was no turning back. He had stirred up a hornet's nest, and now he had to see it through. The next few days were a blur of close calls and clandestine meetings. Jake reached out to Sarah Chen, a young deputy he believed he could trust. Together, they worked to gather evidence, always one step ahead of the shadowy figures trying to silence them. It all came to a head on a stormy night at the harbor. Jake and Sarah, acting on a tip, staked out an incoming shipment. But they had walked into a trap. Gunfire erupted, bullets pinging off shipping containers as they ran for cover. In the chaos, Jake found himself cornered. The crime boss, none other than the town's beloved mayor, advanced, weapon raised. "You should have stayed retired, detective," he sneered. A blur of fur and fury streaked past Jake. Max launched himself at the mayor, clamping down on his gun arm. The weapon clattered to the ground as man and dog grappled. The distraction was all Jake needed. He tackled the mayor, and with Sarah's help, they subdued him just as police sirens wailed in the distance. In the aftermath, as federal agents swarmed the town and long-hidden secrets came to light, Jake stood on the beach, Max by his side. The dog nuzzled his hand as if to say, "We did it." Jake smiled, scratching behind Max's ears. "Good boy," he murmured. "Good boy." The sun peeked over the horizon, bathing Seaside Cove in golden light. It wasn't the peaceful retirement Jake had envisioned, but as he looked down at his faithful companion, he realized something. Sometimes the path to healing isn't about running from your past. It's about finding the strength to face new challenges, one day at a time. With a final glance at the town, his town now, for better or worse, Jake turned and began walking down the beach. Max trotted happily beside him, ready for whatever adventure came next.